Welcome to the Brothers Banner podcast. My name is Brian, the one on the other side with the much gray hair. That would be Donnie. We are excited.
That's all right.
We are excited about this podcast. I was telling Scoot before we came on, anytime we have a interview, it's always a lot of fun, right, Donnie?
Oh, it's tons of fun.
Yeah. So what we'll have going on, we'll have maybe a little bit of comments. Make sure that you drop a comment in the section below. And if you have a question for our guest, make sure you put like a little cue by it. And then that way I'll know to ask him any questions. So leading into that, Donnie, lead us into it.
Scoot, how's it going, man?
Going great, man. How are you?
Yeah, man, good. It's been a long time, man. So let me explain, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong on anything, okay? So Scoot and I broke into the business around 1993 or 94. Am I correct so far?
That is correct.
Yes. So we were up and down the East Coast, man. We did a lot of we wrestled each other a few times. Most notably for me anyway was back I think it was 97 at Sneakers when one half of the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, tagged with me and Steve when we were Tombstone and the Gravedigger, and you were with Dynamite Slick V and Snake Watson. Am I correct on that?
Wow.
How about that? That's going way back. We go way back like Cadillac seats anyway, man. Back, when I was sneaking into the club and stuff. What is all that, man?
I just had someone text me and ask me, how do I find the podcast today?
We are on Facebook and YouTube under the Brothers Banter podcast, just in case anybody needs to jet on there real quick. We'll give them a few minutes.
So Scoot and I used to be roommates as well. And man, that was back in the day, wasn't it? Golly. And so we would travel to the shows. Scoot ended up moving to, was it Tampa?
Yeah, I think the first big show that we traveled to, we didn't actually get a chance to actually perform, but we went in and kind of observed, was at Winter Haven. I can't remember the name of the actual federation. I ended up actually wrestling for those guys for like 3 straight years after that. But I think we thought we were going to Winter Park, and we went to Orlando, and we're like, oh my God, this is not where we're supposed to be. And we ended up going another hour away to Winter Haven, which is actually in Polk County in Florida. So,
yes. So am I correct when I say that it was, who was that really crazy wrestler? He would always come out to Joy to the World or something.
Oh my God. Man, your memory is way better.
Oh man, I can't remember who that was. But he was a big time worker in Florida Championship Wrestling. Bugsy McGraw. Never mind. Bugsy McGraw.
Yep.
You remember seeing him, and we were like, man, this was way before we got into like really deep in the business, and it was. I mean, I just couldn't believe that was an icon to me, and he was like just a shell of his former self. Man. I don't know if you know that or not.
I also remember there was a tag team called Bad Medicine. Cyanide and Strychnine, I think, was their name. One guy was like 6'8". The one guy was 6'8", like 300 pounds, and he wrestled for WCW later on. And then his tag team partner was the blonde guy who was shorter and stockier. Ended up actually being my tag team partner for a long time. And we were actually naturally marvelous. So yeah, that was I saw a lot of people on that show that I ended up being really good friends with later on. So that was actually a very good trip for us.
Yeah, I remember that. Did
We
the
have
ring break that night?
huh?
What's
Sorry
wrong?
about. I was just letting you know we have quite a few people in here. Um, that is listening. We got Keith on here. Keith
What's
Price.
up, Keith?
We got Laura Ramsdell. Is that right?
My friend out in Oregon. My friend
Jeff
out in Oregon.
Marvin. Hey, Brandon. What's up? And
Nice.
yeah, we got a couple. We got quite a few in here. So, um,
Awesome.
Donnie, you want to get started with giving him the lowdown, some questions? Let's see if we can't stump him a little bit.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, so, all right, yes. So, give me your morning routine for success. What do you
My
do every morning? So I
okay.
know that you are a professional guy. Okay, you're a director of your company. You're very important. You have a team that gets behind you. What is your morning routine that you know for a fact when you walk out? And I know you got a mirror at your door too, because I know I've known you for a long time. And you look, you look at yourself in the mirror and you just like smile, like that's what I'm talking about.
Well, that's all day long. So my morning routine, never quite ever been asked that. So let's see. I wake up, obviously. Um, I brush my teeth, I wash my face, and I go make a hearty breakfast, whether that is just for myself or myself and my wife, which usually consists of eggs, bacon, grits, protein waffle, and homemade, freshly squeezed orange juice pretty much every morning. Eat that, get my whatever shirt I'm going to wear for work, because it really doesn't matter what you wear underneath, because no one sees you on camera below your waist. And I jump on the computer and get to work. So that's about it.
All right. All right. Are you still working out? Because
Oh
you're a
yeah.
specimen. I'm gonna tell you. I mean, you are. I've always, you and I used to work out together as well. I remember days. It'd be raining, and we would be sitting in my car or my truck in the parking lot of the gym. We're like, I don't really feel this today. You remember that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh,
It was
definitely.
crazy.
Yeah. So,
Brian, you had a question?
Yeah, I got a
go
question.
ahead.
So, when did your wrestling career begin? Was it when you met Donnie, or before then?
So, ironically, I had met Donnie previously when he was a bouncer at a nightclub, and so that was one separate thing that happened. And then when I graduated from college, playing football and looking for something to do, I kind of affiliated with my fraternity at the University of North Florida. Took one class a year so I could do intramurals and be a part of the chapter, right? So we sat around. There's a bunch of wrestling fans in our fraternity, and we sat around one day and we were like, what could we do as a fundraiser for the fraternity? Because every fraternity has a philanthropy that they raise money for. So we were like, what can we do that's creative? Car washes, yeah, everybody does that. A bake sale, yeah, that's for sororities. So one of us, it wasn't me, I can't remember who it was, but had the bright idea of, why don't we put on a pro wrestling show? Not like we knew anything about how to do it or how to promote it. We didn't even have a ring the first time we did it. We actually had a wrestling mat that we borrowed from the UNF wrestling. I don't know if we got it from the wrestling team or gym. Somewhere we got a wrestling mat. We put folding tables around the wrestling mat to simulate the ropes. And we basically just put on a show for ourselves. And it was pretty fun. That was a year before. Fast forward to the next year, we decided we were going to do a pro wrestling show as a rush event. So if you've ever been a part of a fraternity, rush event is where you're recruiting new members like the first week or two of school. So some people have parties, some people just have, outdoor cookouts. We decided, we're going to do a wrestling show. So I got in the Jacksonville Times-Union, or the Florida Times-Union, I guess at the time, and I looked in the sports page, and I saw an independent wrestling show that was going to be run in the next couple weeks, and it had the location, and 4 or 5 of my fraternity brothers and I went to go see this show. Donnie was on this show, by the way. So I see him come out, and I'm like, holy crap, I know this guy. So I think I may have asked him who owned the ring, and we basically rented the ring. I think maybe 2 or 3 months later. And we put on this wrestling show as a rush event. I was named Nature Boy Scoot Flair was my name, I guess. I think that's what I call myself. I was wrestling a guy who looked a lot like Sting. He had spiky blonde hair, pretty muscular. So we put face paint on him, and we called him Sting or Stung or something like that. We had maybe 4 matches, I think. But we did a decent job. I mean, I think, Donnie, you were there. I think it was pretty impressive for a bunch of college kids, or I had just graduated.
Oh yeah, I mean, let me tell you, those guys were athletes, man. I mean, they were indeed athletes. And was that the year that Sergeant Slaughter was there?
That was the second year. So it took on a life of its own. We actually ended up with Sergeant Slaughter appearing on one show. But I asked Donnie who I should talk to once the show was over about maybe getting into the business. So before I got an opportunity to do that, I think Damian Lee was there. And Hot Stuff walked up to me and said, "Hey man, you're pretty good at this. You want to do it?" And I was about to ask him if he would train me, and then he goes, "You want to do this?" And I was like, "Yes, let's go." So immediately the next weekend, I traveled all the way to Green Cove, where his ring was set up outside in like a pole barn with no walls.
Go Hagen's ring.
Go Hagen's ring, absolutely. And I went there probably 2 or 3 days a week for 6 straight weeks. And next thing you know, I had my first actual match about 6 weeks after I started training. No clue what the hell I was. I was green as grass. But I was chasing my dream because you know what? I was that 8-year-old kid at the Jacksonville Veteran Memorial Coliseum every Thursday night.
Yeah.
And that's what I always wanted to do. So I got the opportunity to do it. It was actually pretty freaking cool. So 1994 is when that happened.
Somebody got their text message ringer on, or
that is probably
something going off.
Probably me. Please, I will actually quit my text message. Yeah, the issue is I have iMessage on my Mac, so it actually.
I got you. That's what.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. So prior to that, did you have anything really much to do with wrestling? I mean, did you watch it as a child? You know, did you have any interest in it back then?
Every Saturday at 1:00, Gordon Solie and Florida Championship Wrestling is what I watched from probably the time I was 5 years old until I graduated from college. I mean, I watched it every time it came out.
Every Saturday. And couldn't wait till Saturday night.
Yep. And then Thursdays was when Florida Championship Wrestling came through Jacksonville every week. And if
Thunderbolt Patterson.
Oh, yeah. And if you remember back in that day, it would always be a sellout if Dusty was on the top. Oh, yeah. But if Dusty was not there, it would probably be half full, and you could always barter your way down the ringside of being like the first or second row when Dusty wasn't on the card. So every Thursday night I was there as a kid. So it was
Me too.
It was definitely in my blood.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, what you got, Donnie?
So let me ask you this. Who was your biggest influence? And I know the answer to this question. I think I do. But I know you're going to answer with either one or two people. One of two people. Who was your biggest influence in your wrestling career?
I would say there's two. First one being Hack Myers
Yep.
from ECW,
Yep.
who basically he took me under his wing and retrained me, and taught me the way to do the business from a television standpoint, as opposed to just going out there and wrestling. He taught me how to call it in the ring 100%. He taught me how to work the crowd. He taught me all the little things that I did not learn from Damien and Gohagen, that if I'd have gone to a reputable school, I probably would have learned and been a lot better early on. And I credit Hack's tutelage, getting me into Ring of Honor, getting me in the Super 8, getting me on WWE TV, and getting me to wrestle internationally. So yeah, Hack Myers is probably the number one influence on me. The second one is probably, you may not know this one, but the second one was later on as I'm traveling and doing a whole lot of stuff up in the Northeast. And I actually got to feud with the fallen angel, Christopher Daniels. I wrestled.
Okay, I would have thought that.
Yeah, I wrestled him in the finals of the Super 8 up in Delaware. And that is when I realized the big man style that we do in Florida is 100,000 complete different than what they do up north with all the high spots and running all over the ring and doing all the crazy stuff that you see on AEW now. And I turned my
Good
thing
Lord.
off. Wyatt is still I literally closed my text messages. What the heck? Hold, please.
My friend Michelle says that she likes the dinging because it sounds like we're in the ring, dinging for the ring.
Yeah,
So,
it
that's funny.
It definitely does. All right, I am. All right, go ahead.
Brian, you got one?
Yeah. So from the time that you first started getting into the business, did you give yourself some time to prepare and to learn as much as you could, or you just kind of done it as you went?
You do it as you go. You
Okay.
kind of do that because the thing about pro wrestling is you don't know what you don't know.
Okay.
And the only way you learn it is by experiencing it, if you will. I remember Hack told me at one point when he was training me and we were kind of doing matches down in South Florida. I apologize for that. It's crazy. He told me that by the time I retired, that I would forget more wrestling than I knew at the time he was teaching me. And I was like, man, there's no way you're going to forget wrestling, right? You're never going to forget. Like when you're wrestling once a month, once every 2 or 3 months, you remember every match. You remember how every storyline went. You remember how every finish went. You remember every crowd. And then probably 6 years after that, I ran into a dude and he's like, hey, man, you remember when we wrestled down in Daytona? That was one of the best matches I ever had. And I'm like, who are you? So yeah, Hack was prophetic, man. It's like once you start doing so much in the business, you literally forget half the stuff that you did, especially at the beginning. So, catching up with Donnie earlier definitely sparked some memories that, I probably would have forgotten. Like the name Snake Watson he used ago. I had just thought of that name like 15 minutes ago when we were talking about 1993, 1994. And I was like, that name popped into my head. And then 5 minutes later, Donnie says it. So, yeah, I never would remember that name if Donnie hadn't brought it up. So it's crazy.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it was good. It was good times, man. So, I broke my leg in his ring, and he was kind of scared. I was going to do something and all this other crap. And I'm like, man, look, I just want to get back in the ring, And so I know that you broke your leg one time, and
Yes.
was it just once? Yeah, how long did that keep you out? And I know you wanted to get back in the ring the next night too.
Yeah, so I was in a big feud. I was tagging with Mike Sullivan, Marvelous Mike Sullivan from the Tampa area, who was a part of that Bad Medicine tag team that Donnie and I spoke of earlier. And we were doing a show in St. Pete, I think, and I did a leg drop off the top, and the padding underneath the canvas had gotten bunched up, like right where my foot landed as my leg was coming down, and I broke my right ankle. Luckily, I had on a brand new pair of boots from Stagecoach, and it pretty much saved me from snapping the things because they were pretty stiff boots. They weren't even broken in yet, so thank God I had those on. So I was out of commission for the 6 weeks that I had to wear a cast. They cut the cast off, and I put an air cast on. I taped it, put an air cast on, and put my boot over that the very day they took the cast off because we had a huge show in Pinellas Park, 5,000 tickets sold. We had Bubba the Love Sponge, and he was wrestling against Brutus the Barber, I think, in the main event. I want to say Hogan was there making an appearance because obviously him and that got the radio Bubba the Love Sponge were pretty good friends, so he always showed up. Kevin Sullivan was on the show. I mean, there's a bunch of names from the 80s and the 90s that were on that show. And we were in the semi-main event in a 6-man. And Christopher Daniels, Tony Marmaluke, myself, Michael Sullivan. I forgot who the other two people in it were. Oh, the Shane twins probably. And I barely could walk, let alone run the ropes. So I get down to the ring. We do a couple spots. I jump in. Someone clips my leg. I scream bloody murder, and they carry me out like I broke my leg. So yeah, that night, the day I got the cast cut off, Christopher Daniels rode with me to the doctor. They cut the cast off. The doctor told me, take 2 weeks to, rehab before I got back in the ring, and I was back in the ring 4 hours later. Just not smart. Not smart at all.
Right. Yep.
So what was your favorite match that you've ever participated in?
Wow.
Favorite. Can you narrow it down to just one?
I'm going to have to say the Super 8 finals against Christopher Daniels, if I got to nail one, just because it was the night I realized that I could wrestle up in the Northeast, in the New York, Philly, where the fans are pretty brutal if you're not very good. I was able to prove to myself that I could wrestle that style up there. And then that led to matches against Low Ki, American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. I'm trying to think who else. God, there was a lot of names that I wrestled up there. Edge. It gave me a springboard into a much better career than I ever could have imagined. So I would have to say that match was probably the one. And that was the first match that I appeared in the Wrestler magazine. If you remember those things back in the day.
I remember that.
Oh yeah.
So, and then after that match, I started to get calls from Chicago, LA, St. Louis, all over the country to come do independent shows, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, I can imagine. What you got, Donnie?
So, did you ever see like one of the most famous fights in the back room? When you were in WWE in the back room, were you set like? I hate to use the word jobber because you weren't. You know what I'm saying? Because I saw you, really take it to Spike Dudley, but did y'all have separate back rooms like for the megastars and for the enhancement talent, stuff like that? Were there separate dressing rooms?
So yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, there were. So the guys on top are the ones who had private dressing rooms. So you would walk backstage and there would be like, piece of notebook paper taped to a door, and it would say The Rock or Triple H or China, whoever. Anybody who was mid-card or below dressed wherever there was somewhere to dress. So I was in the dressing room with, Spike, Crash, Bob Holly, pretty much everybody that you've seen in WWF at that point in WWE that was not a top star. I mean, we all we all dressed in this. You just found a spot with a chair, open your bag, and start getting ready. So, but only the big names had their own private dressing rooms.
Did you ever see any fights between a lot of the top stars or even mid carders and stuff like that?
I never saw any fights. I did get the opportunity to see Undertaker Court or Taker Court, which
Okay, that's. Ooh,
you've heard of that, I'm sure.
I sure have, yeah.
I walked into the wrong room when they were doing Taker Court, and when I opened the door, they were like, "Shut the door, shut the door." So I shut the door, and I didn't think to step out of the door. So I just stayed in the back and didn't say a word. I'm not going to say who was on trial. I'm not going to go there and what it was about.
No,
But
that's okay. That's all right.
it was
That's a thing, though.
it was interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've heard some stories about that. So.
Yeah, he was the if you want to think about not using it as a mafia term, but he was the muscle for Vince. So
Okay.
there you go.
Right.
So let me ask you something. So did you have any going into the match? Do you have any rituals or any pre-match routines that you had before you entered the ring?
So this is funny. I probably go to the bathroom about 27 times in a 30-minute period. Just how I've always been. But basically my pre-match routine was obviously figuring out what the hell we're doing. That would be number one. But once it was like maybe 30 minutes or an hour till go time, I would, probably do about 50 push-ups, get the elastic bands out and do curls, triceps, just to kind of get a pump. Back then, we didn't have things like Red Bull or energy drinks. So I don't
Yeah,
remember what the heck I used to. I'm getting the hot stuff. Calm down. I think maybe we used to pop like weight loss pills or something, just to get a big jolt of energy before you go through the curtain. But then 5 minutes before I would go out, I would get this stuff that bodybuilders used to use in the 80s. They may still use it, I'm not sure, but it's called Hot Stuff. And it's kind of a combination of baby oil and icy hot, kind of, but it's a little bit more watery and not as thick as baby oil. But you spray it on, and you literally smell like a bottle of icy hot as you walk through. But it makes your veins pop. It makes you vascular, and you get that shine, that sheen that you need when you're under the lights in the ring to make you look a little bit bigger. The guys like my size that are 200 pounds, you get that sheen and the light hits you just right. You look 220, 230, and nobody questions that. So hot stuff is what I use, but until I went to WWE, and Road Dogg is allergic. And I found that out very quickly the first time I pulled the bottle out. Someone almost tackled me right when I was about to spray it. And that Road Dogg is very allergic, and his face would like explode if I sprayed the bottle. So never used it at WWE. I just used straight up baby oil at that point. So, but do you know what I used in the last 4 or 5 years of my career, Donnie?
Nope.
I used Pam.
Oh, really? Okay. Where'd you learn that at?
I forgot who turned me on to that, but it's like you're as shiny as if you have a whole bottle of baby oil on, but it does not clog your pores, and it's very light. And as soon as you start to sweat, it's gone. So
okay. All right.
Started to use that for a long time. If you talk to anybody in the Tampa area from the probably like 1999 to 2001 period, they will all tell you stories about Pam, and times I used the butter flavored by mistake and flies were yeah. We could do a whole podcast.
Georgia Animal Steel lick you.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on Pam. So
I know, right?
I'll leave it at that.
Hey, so all right, this is probably my most serious question.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Oh God.
What does Coon Bullyfoot mean?
Oh my God, I should have known you were coming with these left field. So
Explain it.
I'm going to give you the real origin. One of my best friends, actually my best friend from high school, who played left tackle at Georgia Tech. And I went to go visit. I think I had a bye week. I went to go visit him, something, whatever. So I'm going out with a bunch of Georgia Tech football players. And one of the guys asked him for like, hey, can you give me $10? I want to go get a drink. And the first name he gave him was, do I look like Willie Treat Treat? No, I'm not treating you for a drink. Get the hell away from me. So that was the first one. Somehow somebody asked him something. He goes, dude, who am I, Poon Bullyfoot? I'm like, what the hell is that? There was Ula Medulla, Ennard Skimp, all these different names that he had for specific situations, but Poon Bullyfoot stuck for some reason. And so did Ula Medulla.
That has stuck with me for 30 years.
Huh?
That has stuck with me for 30 years when I first heard you say that.
So
and it might not even been with wrestling. It might have been back when we were clubbing.
No, it was at wrestling, because anytime I talk to Christopher Daniels, he will always say, Mr. Bullyfoot, how are you today? So yeah, it was definitely a wrestling. But that's where it came from. Awesome. And I kind of took that on and used it a lot. So pretty much everybody in wrestling knows, will say I'm Poon Bullyfoot. Awesome. Good question. Good question.
Let me ask you, dream opponent of all time, past, present, who would that be?
I know it.
You think you know it, Don?
I think I do.
I think I would, obviously being the Black Nature Boy, I think my dream opponent would be Ric Flair.
Yep. Is that who you thought, Dottie?
Oh, that's exactly who I thought. But I mean, because, him being the Black Nature Boy, early in his career, he would come out with the robe and I remember him making that robe, man, that black robe with the with all the feathers and everything, and
silver butterfly.
My gosh. Oh man, that was amazing. But I'll tell you, they look good from afar.
For being
when oh man, they're good from the ring.
I got a real one made at one point, but I was pretty much early on. I was pretty much doing a lot of Ric Flair type things: the chops, the strut, the woo, all of that. And as I kind of, oh yeah, the two steps and face bump, everything. Throw me in the corner, do the flip, run down. I did everything. Even the figure four as my finish, which was, kind of gimmick infringement. But as I moved it through my career, I kind of dropped the Flair stuff and added my own stuff. And then I stopped wearing robes, I think probably after a year, because I was like, I can't be shiny if I'm wearing a robe, because a robe wipes it all off. So I'm like, all right, that goes away. So then I went with glitter vests. And then I went from the vest to nothing at all. And, just kind of morphed into my own Black Nature Boy character that really had nothing to do with Ric Flair whatsoever. Even though the crowd would always, do the woo when they saw me, but I never did any of the Flair stuff once I kind of morphed into my own character. So, but Flair would be my dream opponent. If I wanted to go a dream opponent for right now, I would probably say, Triple H, even though he's not right now.
Okay.
Because he's
such a good match. We're about the same height.
No, he's a little taller.
Is he really?
A little bit. He was a little shorter. Flair ain't much taller.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was a bouncer at Airport Holiday Inn. Ric Flair brought me somebody who was messing with him. He brought him to me in a headlock to say, "Here, big man, do something with him." And I was like, I was starstruck. I was like, 19 years old, and he was like, he's messing with him, big man, do something with him. So,
listen,
what is the grossest thing you ever dealt with in the ring?
Grossest thing in the ring?
Yes. What's the most disgusting thing that's ever happened to you in the ring?
Oof. I'm gonna have to say,
Because I got one.
because I'm like body odor bothers me really, really bad. So anytime I wrestle anyone
Oh
that
my
had
gosh, yeah.
that is probably the
Mm.
not a whole lot grosses me out. I mean, I was in a steel cage match with Roderick Strong, and his tag team partner at the time, Cedric Strong, and Mike Sullivan and I. This is pretty gross. Mike Sullivan and I were the baby faces trying to win IPW or NWA Florida tag team straps from the Strong brothers. And SoCal Val, if you remember her, who was on TNA and Impact, and I think she does a podcast of her own now, but she was their manager. And we're in a steel cage, and I guess the storyline was we were so desperate to win the titles that we turned heel on the heels, and we literally beat them from pillar to post, and it was crazy. But I remember Christopher Daniels gave Cedric his blade, or made the blade for Cedric, because obviously you're in a steel cage match, you got to get blood, right? So there's two ways to do color. And Donnie, you know this. I don't know if you know this about Brian, but you can go with the small blade and hit it like that, which is what the most veterans do. Or you can go with the big blade and do that. So it basically just puts a small hole, lots of blood, and less scars, right? So I take Cedric. I ram him into the pole. He takes it, to the cage. He takes his blade, which is for the poke, and he decides with the big blade, 30 stitches, 3 staples. But I just remember I go to shoot him in. He reverses. I hit the buckle. I drop, and he comes in and do a Bronco Buster. And it's like somebody had a water bottle like this full of his blood and just poured it on me in the
Oh man.
to the point where I almost started to gag. I've never ever been like, seeing blood never bothered me. Like the first time I saw my own blood in the ring, it didn't even bother me. But just it was I know this is gross, but the smell, the blood all over me. And I'm like, dude, take it home. Take it home. And he's like, we gotta finish. We're almost there. You're gonna die. And they rushed him to the hospital. He got his thing. So that's probably number one gross besides the BO thing. What was yours?
Yeah. So you and I were at Sneakers, and it was you and Dynamite Slick V and and Snake Watson working me, Steve, and Ricky Morton. So you and I tied up, and you sneezed, and you got a booger in my mouth. And I was so close to vomiting, and that I was blown up just getting to the ring. Okay, number one, but then when you sneezed and we locked up, and your booger got in my mouth, and I could see on the tape. I watched it like 2 months ago, and you just see me try to get that thing out of my mouth and just swinging. I was like, what? I was about to throw up. It was
I don't
horrible.
think I have ever sneezed
it was the most
since that, which is crazy. But yeah,
you either snotted or you sneezed, and when you did, it was on your hand, and somehow your hand touched my mouth, and it went. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely horrible. It was horrible.
I was green. I was green.
We were all green, man. Let me tell you. Oh gosh, that was great.
So,
what you got, Brian?
So my last question I've got for him is we've always, there's a couple of us from work, we've always known Donnie was into wrestling. So you're probably one of the only few people that can give us this answer. Okay. Did Donnie only wrestle people that was below 5 foot?
Yes.
Can you confirm that?
I can't confirm that. He didn't ever really want to work anyone who was taller or bigger than he was.
Because
Yeah,
nobody was.
that is true.
Nobody was except Bob, Big Bob. That's it. You know, and he was so light that I mean, it was hard to work him because he was so light and everything. But I was a crowbar, man. You know, and like when us and Beauty and the Beast used to get together and everything, and my gosh, you know, it was always a stiff match with those guys. But you know, nobody was as big as me, you know, in the ring. So you know,
True.
it
That's
was
true. Well,
it was good
the one
times, man. I tell you.
the big guy with the mask, I can't remember what his name was. Do you remember his name from like Daytona area?
From LOD.
Yeah, LOD. That was him.
Yeah, Big
Yeah,
Bob. That's what I'm talking about. He worked
you
so light. He was trained by Malenko.
yeah, you stayed away from him as much as you possibly could though. Especially when you were in
Well,
charge
I
of
mean, nobody
booking.
wanted to put us together. I mean,
When you were
I was
booking,
terrible.
you definitely did not put you and him together. That's for sure. So
No,
yes, that is
because I tag team most of the time. So you know, it was me. I mean, me and Steve and the and Beauty and the Beast were always, you know, doing that. So,
this is true.
but
This is true.
so all right. My last question is this: where can people go to learn more about you as a wrestler? What can they do to you know, the interest is there, I'm sure. You know what I'm saying? So what can they do to learn more about you?
So if you actually want to see matches, if you go to YouTube and just search for Scoot Andrews or Black Nature Boy, there's probably 40 or 50 matches from probably 96, 97 through all my WWE matches are on there. So that would be a good place if you want to see performances. I don't necessarily still have a website anymore because obviously I'm not a full-time worker. You can follow me on Twitter at B&B Scoot Andrews, and there's a good bit of wrestling stuff on there and merchandise. Always plugging merchandise.
There you go.
Better believe it.
So yeah, just YouTube probably is the best place. And if you go on like Peacock and you go look at old TV matches on Jacked, Metal, or Sunday Night Heat, you will probably see 8 or 9 of my matches that I did as enhancement against people like Spike, Crash, Val Venus, Al Snow.
Oh yeah, I trust me. I watched them all just because you're my boy. You know what I'm saying? So,
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Well,
always did, and
we appreciate you being on the show for sure. We really enjoyed it.
I do have one more question.
Okay.
One more. All right.
Oh,
So, as you you know, you were on the Jerry Springer show.
knew this was coming. Yes, I was on the Jerry Springer.
What was your role on the Jerry Springer show?
So there was a producer on Springer who was very big into using independent wrestlers who were not as well known. And this was prior to me starting to travel all over the country and doing WWE matches. So I would probably have to say this was probably in 1996 or 7. Flew me and classy Chris Nelson, who was a mainstay. Yeah, he was a mainstay down here in the Tampa area back in the day when I was doing it full time. He had been on previously, but they brought us both on. And then there was this young lady who worked at Hooters in Lakeland who was friends with him. So the three of us were going to go on, and the name of the show was Baby, I'm a Hooker. And she was portraying my girlfriend of 6 months, and she was going to come clean with me on the Jerry Springer show that she indeed was a prostitute and was not a bartender, as I was led to believe. Chris, being her number one John, had to come out because he wanted to profess his love for her. And it became a love triangle between Chris, myself, and her. We brought another dude with us who looked like Charles Manson, who just wanted to go on the trip. He paid his own way. He came. But we talked the producer into bringing him on as her brother and her pimp.
That's awesome.
And the young lady was white, and we decided he was going to be a racist pimp brother. So it was basically Chris and I fighting for her attention, and then him basically shooting barbs at me, and the crowd absolutely losing their minds. We're supposed to be 4 segments, and they stretched us out to 9. We basically bumped half the show off the show because the producer said, keep going, this is awesome. We ended up on Talk Soup pretty much every time that show was aired. Oh, wow. Now, piggyback that with this. My very first WWF at the time match was in the very same Jacksonville Coliseum that I used to go every Thursday night. I'm backstage. I'm signing in. I'm giving them all my, information for I-9 or whatever to get paid. And Big Show walks in. Unbeknownst to me, they showed the replay of Jerry Springer the night before, and he watched it in his hotel room. And he walked in and he screams, "Dude, you were on Springer last night."
That's awesome.
So obviously, as I started to do WWE loops more with those guys, I had Teddy Long telling me, "Listen, man, if you ever see my wife, please don't tell her that Springers will work. She will lose her mind." So by the time I got done wrestling for WWE, everyone knew I had been on Jerry Springer. So very good show, a lot of fun. I met up with that producer when I was in Chicago for business, and I guess I played the baby really well because they had over 2,500 letters from women that were telling me I did not need her and had all the information in these letters for me to get in touch with them. So
that is awesome.
I'd rather be the heel, but that was a very good babyface night for me. That was good times.
There you go.
That's good, man. That's
all right.
Good.
So we appreciate you coming on, Donnie.
Yeah, man. Scoot, brother, it's been great catching up, man. It has been wonderful. I've had a time in my life, man. I don't even be able to sleep tonight. I mean, it's been great. I know that. So people that don't know, Scoot and I, we talk a lot. Like and it's mostly, we never talk wrestling. It's always what?
Politics.
That's it. It's politics. We argue more about politics than anything else, man. It is hilarious. And sometimes I just say things just to upset him and get him ticked off. And but he's a good sport with it. And listen, I got a lot of love for you, brother. You know that. And man, I look forward to seeing you soon. And if you ever get to Jacksonville again, let me know. Now I'm in Brunswick now, so but we can always hook up, man. Anytime you get to Jacksonville, I'm there Monday through Friday. So if you ever come up for a game or something, let me know. We'll hook up.
Got it, man. Thank you so much for having me, man. Your voice brings back so many fun and crazy memories. Mostly wrestling, but a lot of just fun away from the business as well. So yeah, I feel the same about you, man. Nothing but love. And if we ever want to do a round 2, I'm available. Just let me know when you're ready.
All right. Well,
that sounds good, brother. Appreciate you, man.
My name is Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Donnie. We're out.
Peace.